Everyone, welcome to my podcast, the Gyan Dive. How are y'all doing? I want to start off this episode with saying Om Namah Shivaya. Start off on the right note. And today we're going to be talking about chapter 5 of the Gita. So I'm super excited, and I'm super excited to just share the lessons that I've learned through this chapter because there's so many. And let me know, share your feedback in the comment section, what you thought about it and what you'd like to see more of. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe, please, so that we can keep this going. In the last episode, we explored chapter 4, where Krishna revealed how divine wisdom and selfless action purify us. Now, in chapter 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga, Arjuna asks a question that still troubles many of us today. Is it better to live a life of renunciation, which is giving up all action, or to act in the world through karma yoga, performing one's duty without attachment? He asks this question in Shlok 1 of chapter 5. So this chapter answers that question and, more importantly, shows us how to find peace even while living amidst chaos, which I feel like is super relevant for, um, our generation because it's so chaotic. Um, so Krishna replies in shloks 5.2 to 5.6. So Krishna replies clearly, both renunciation and selfless action lead to liberation, but of the two, karma yoga is superior. Here's here he's teaching that the goal isn't to escape the world, it's to transform the way that we engage with it. He adds, in Shlok 5.4, only the immature think that Sankhya, the path of knowledge, and Karma Yoga are different. The wise see them as one. So Shankara and Madhva, which are two rishis who wrote commentaries on the Gita, interprets Sankhya as renunciation, while Ramanujan Ram Ramanuja calls it the path of knowledge or jnana, realizing the self. So Krishna's point is whether through wisdom or action, the destination is the same, freedom through understanding. Now, what lesson can we take away from this? I think we take away that true spirituality doesn't lie in what you do, but how you do it. So you can live in a busy city, work a full-time job, and care for your family, and still be a yogi if your heart is detached and your actions are selfless. So I think we all kind of think that being a yogi is meditating or renouncing everything, not having a family, not having a job, not earning money. But here Krishna is saying that we can still be a yogi while living in this world? So I think that's super profound. Now, in Shloka 5.7, he says, he whose mind is purified, self-controlled, whose senses are subdued, who sees the same self in all beings through acting is never bound. So that's a whole lot. But Ramanuja says, the yogi realizes that all souls share the same divine essence. The differences we perceive, rich or poor, strong or weak, are only due to prakriti or material nature. So the lesson that we can take away from this is when you see divinity in everyone, service becomes natural. No action binds you because it's no longer my work, it's God's work through me. So I think um the organization that I go to, Swadhyay, Bhujnia Dadaji talks about this a lot of times, and this is perhaps the fundamental lesson that he wants us all to remember, that God exists in every living being, and that if we serve them or if we do good things for them, we're indirectly serving God. So I think this is also an important lesson. Now, for shlokas 5.8 to 5.13, Krishna describes the liberated person. The wise, knowing the truth, think, I do nothing at all. Seeing, hearing, touching, eating, walking, they know it's only the senses acting on sense objects. So he says this in 5.8 to 5.9. And then the self-controlled ones lives happily in the city of nine gates, neither acting nor causing the body to act in 5.13. So, can you guess what the city of nine gates refers to? Write it down in the comments, pause this video right now and write it down. But the city of nine gates is our body. Yeah. So the 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, mouth, and 2 organs of excretion. The soul simply resides within, witnessing, not owning. So the lesson here is you are not your body or your mind. That's something that Professor Edwin Bryant talked about a lot. And you're the witness behind them. So when you stop identifying with your roles, achievements, or failures, peace naturally follows. I think this is so important to not get caught up in identifying with your mind or body, and your senses, that you're beyond that. Now, shlokas 5.14 to 5.15 are also super, super profound. So, Krishna says, the Lord creates neither actions nor their results. It is nature that acts in 5.14. So here Madhava says, thinks that the Lord here means God and soul acting together, whereas Shankara and oh my God, Ramanuja say that it refers to the individual soul which imagines itself as a doer. So again, I think the Gita is open to interpretation, and that's why we have so many commentaries on it, and these different rishis that come from these different schools of thoughts will have different opinions on it. So that's that. The Supreme accepts neither the virtue nor the sin of anyone. Ignorance covers knowledge, and beings are deluded. 5.15. Once ignorance is lifted, light floods in, like sunlight breaking through clouds. So the lesson here is that we suffer because we over-identify as the doer. Freedom begins when we remember, I act, but God moves through me. So if we constantly think that we're the doer, like we're the reason that we're responsible for everything and we're the ones who do everything, I don't think that you can ever be happy. But if you realize, like, I feel like your ego can overcome you when you think that you're the doer for everything, you know? But when you think that you're simply the instrument and God acts through you, that's when you can truly um be at peace. So like for example, starting my podcast, I feel like I always had the urge to start my own podcast and I always wanted to do this. But while I'm doing it, I understand that it's God who nudged me to be on this path and I'm here just to deliver God's word and to spread it to people, and it's not me who's doing anything, you know? So I think it's really important to have that knowledge. Now from shlokas 5.16 to 5.17, when knowledge destroys ignorance, the self shines like the sun. That's 5.16. Those who center their intellect and mind on the Supreme, whose sins are cleansed by knowledge, attain liberation and do not return to this world. 5.17. That is, again, something that Professor Brian talked about, where he was like, the ultimate goal is to constantly center your mind on the Supreme, on God, you know? That's the way to moksha, to liberation. So the lesson here is real knowledge is not information, it's transformation. It changes how you see yourself and how you act in every moment. Beautiful, right? Now, Shlok 5.18 talks about the wise see with equal vision a brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and an outcast. To enlighten, the same divine spark lives in all. So I think this kind of carries forward the idea that the divine resides in every living being and that we should see everyone the same lens. We should perceive everyone the same way. Um, Ramun Ramanuja adds that Brahman here means the soul, each sharing the same divine essence as the Supreme. So he believed that every single being um had the same essence as Supreme, the Supreme Being. So the lesson here is that the highest spirituality is equality. When you stop dividing life into mine and theirs, pure and impure, you start living from love and not ego. And I think that's the best thing that you can do is to live life through a lens of love. And I think I was reading a book by Jay Shetty and he was talking about how we're motivated by various things, by anger, by greed, by, I don't know, by pride, right? And one of them is love. And he said that love is the strongest motivator. So I think that if we all acted through love, I think the world could be a better place. Now there's those who are steady in evenness overcome rebirth. They're serene like Brahman. That's 5.19. The knower of Brahman neither rejoices in the pleasant nor grieves in the unpleasant. 5.20. Detached from external objects, finding happiness within, they enjoy infinite joy in union with Brahman. 5.21. So I think this is a beautiful, beautiful section of this chapter, and I think it kind of conveys the essence, one of the core principles of the Gita, which is equanimity. And I think we talked about this in the last chapter, and we talked about how hard it is to actually embody it in your own life. But I think the idea here, like the lesson, is that peace is not the absence of problems, it's the presence of equanimity. Happiness that depends on external things will always fluctuate. Seek the joy that comes from alignment with your highest self. That's true. If you always seek pleasure and happiness and associate it with external objects, you're never truly going to be happy. And I think we've all experienced it where we just want, let's say, you just want this one bag and you work and work and work and make sure you get that bag. And once you get that bag, you're like, oh, okay, on to the next. So you're never truly happy when, or let's say you base all your happiness in another person, a romantic partner, for example. So if you expect your partner to make you happy, that's never going to happen. He's always going to fail you because they're human, you know? No one's perfect. So if you base it on them and their actions and what they want to do, you're never truly going to be happy. But if you base your happiness in yourself and in your highest self, I think that's when you can truly be happy. Um, Now, Shloka 5.22 says, the pleasures born of sense contact are sources of misery. They have a beginning and an end. The wise do not delight in them. So the lesson here is pleasure is temporary, peace is permanent. When you chase pleasure, you depend on conditions. When you rest in peace, the world can change and you remain centered. So again, we shouldn't be chasing pleasure. I don't think that's the best thing to do because pleasure, again, is temporary, you know? So we should instead want peace. And I think as you mature, you realize that fact that pleasure is not what's important, it's peace, you know? Now Shloka 5.23 talks about before leaving the body, one who can withstand the impulses of desire and anger is a true yogi and a happy person. So this shlok basically says that, one minute. Um, the shlok basically says the world doesn't need perfection, it needs mastery of the self. The real battle isn't on the outside, but within. Each time you choose patience over anger, love over ego, you win a spiritual victory. So that's so true. I think the biggest battles we fight are on the inside and not on the outside. And I think, again, looking at the world through a lens of love can change everything for the better. Um, Give me 1 second. Okay, on to the next lesson, the next shlok, which is shlok 5.24 to 5.25. So 5.24 talks about the one whose happiness, delight, and light are within attains liberation in Brahman. The seers whose sins are destroyed, whose doubts are gone, who rejoice in the welfare of all beings attain liberation in Brahman. That's 5.25. So Ramanuja says, such yogis find joy not in their own pleasure, but in the well-being of all beings. So the lesson is inner realization naturally expands into outer compassion. When you feel fulfilled within, your instinct is to serve, not to take. Liberation is not escaping humanity, it's embracing it fully. So I think this is so true. We hear this a lot of times when it comes to love, when it comes to like self-love. It's like when your cup is full, it will spill onto others naturally, you know? I think we've all heard of that, you know? So I think this kind of echoes that. Um, and then from shloks 5.26 to 5.29, Krishna concludes with serenity. Those who are free from desire and anger, whose minds are controlled, attain Brahman easily. 5.26. In the final verse, one who knows me as the enjoyer of all sacrifices, Lord of all worlds, and the friend of all beings attains supreme peace. 5.29. The lesson here is that God is not a distant ruler, He is the friend of every soul. Peace comes when we stop resisting life and start trusting its divine order. To live in harmony with this truth is to live in yoga, union with the infinite. Wow, that was profound. So let's pause and summarize all the wisdom we learned in chapter 5. One is that renunciation is inner, not outer. You don't have to leave the world, you just need to live without attachment. So you need to leave attachment. Secondly, action plus awareness is liberation. Thirdly, see divinity in all beings. Equality is spirituality in practice. Fourth is detach from outcomes, master desires, and find joy within. And five, trust God as your closest friend. Krishna teaches Arjuna and all of us that enlightenment isn't about escaping life. It's about engaging it with it from a higher consciousness, one rooted in peace, clarity, and love. So, with this, thank you guys for joining me in this deep exploration of Chapter 5, Renunciation Action. If this teaching inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to the Gyan Dive. And remember that true yoga isn't about leaving the world, it's about bringing divine stillness into the world. Hari Om, Namaste, and with that, I will see you in the next episode. Please let me know who you'd like to see on this podcast so I know who to invite. And thanks, guys. Have a great day.